This is the Reconstructed Man podcast. Welcome to our 4th episode. My name is Layne Ingram, and I'm really excited today because Harry from Home Alone is hosting the show with me today. Oh, wait a minute. That's Daniel. My bad. What up, homie? What up, homie? What up? You threw me off guard with the hat. I was like, is that Harry? Am I Marv today? I didn't know. My bad.
Oh, ruthless. That was pretty
what's going
ruthless.
on?
That was you could have given me a heads up that you were going to just like burn me in the first opening minute, but okay.
You could have gave me a heads up that I was supposed to be Marv today.
Come on. Listen, it snowed all day yesterday here. So this is like the season of leisure. This is like whatever you need to do to be warm, cozy, comfortable, and kind of look good doing it. That's like the COVID season, you know? So.
No, seriously, I did think about you earlier today because I was like, man, I don't feel like doing my hair. And I was like, I wish I had one of those little caps that dude wears, right? And then here you come.
I got a bunch. You know what?
Me.
I will send you one out. I've got a bunch. I don't know. I got to figure out what color it's going to look best on you. I think that might be an
okay look on me. Anyway.
Yeah, I think you could do it.
Anyway, so how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. A little tired, but I'm on vacation this week from my day job, so that's exciting.
Okay.
Take some time. I'm building a lot of stuff at my house right now.
What are you building?
We have a projector in our living room, and so I built a frame around where the TV goes, and then I put up wood wall planks across the whole wall. It's amazing. So
like
maybe I'll share a picture with you.
Yeah, please do. What?
Like it's like a feature wall. We're like fancy. It's like gray washed wood and stuff.
Oh, and then it like frames your big screen TV.
Yes, it frames the frame.
Oh, that's really fancy. So then you can put on like during the holidays, you can do the fire, the recorded fire or whatever. It could be a piece of art now on your wall as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also got a new surround sound system. And so it's an experience now down there. So things are going good. I'm pretty happy.
So you're watching a lot of movies and playing a lot of video games.
Actually, I'm not playing a lot of video games right now, but we are watching a lot of movies, and it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. So exciting.
All right.
Anything new with you? Anything new with you?
I'm taking the week off too. So I'm debating what big project to take on. But right now I'm in the middle of like renovating myself, like rejuvenation and rest for a minute and get balanced again and take baths every day. That's where I'm at right now. But probably maybe Tuesday or Wednesday is gonna start the projects again for me. So yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I'm trying to get used to or trying to do better with not doing anything, like making myself not feel like I have to be productive.
Yeah.
Because you don't always have to be, and that's a really hard thing to do. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to work on this week. Yeah. We'll see. I'm not doing well today, but
it's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
So let's see. I guess the only last thing I'd say was November 20th was my birthday. I turned 40.
Oh yeah. That was a big day. Big day.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And so I also get to share that day with, Transgender Day of Remembrance, which, is just to me, just another sign that I think is, I love it. I hate it. I hate that we have to have that day. But I love that my birthday gets to fall on something so special because it reminds me every year of how lucky I am and how thankful I am for what I have. So Trans Day of Remembrance, we just missed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was it was a big week last week, I think, for a lot of people that we know, and it was a big week for us launching this podcast and intentionally focused around Trans Awareness Week. For those people that don't know much about Transgender Day of Remembrance. It is every November 20th. Every year we celebrate it. In 1998, a beautiful person named Rita Hester was murdered November 28th, 1998. And a year later, her friends and others chose November 20th to honor her murder, but not only hers, anyone else that is transgender or gender variant that is murdered because of anti-transgender hatred and prejudice.
And Rita wasn't the first, and obviously hasn't been and won't be the last, but she did spark international outrage. And, for the last 20 years or so, her family has to relive this every year, sort of. But what she's done is raise awareness that transgender people, trans women are being murdered and killed just because they exist. And her murder was a tragedy, and it was brutal. She was stabbed 20 times. The investigator reports talk about how there was blood everywhere, all over the walls. There was blood on the floors. And it suggests, and the locks were intact in both the front and the back. And so it suggested that she let the person in. And this is somebody that was just murdered brutally for being who they were. And one of the things that really struck me from that story, so we're back in 1998, and they were saying how the police don't clean crime scenes. There's specialized companies that come in and take care of that stuff, but it costs thousands of dollars, and her family couldn't afford it. And so they had to do it.
What? That doesn't even make sense. That's crazy.
And it's just... That's how this started, and it's tragic. But all these deaths are tragic. They're tragic every single time.
Yeah, and what's so sad is that we keep losing transgender people every year, and that number goes up. Just this year alone, we lost 350 transgender individuals to violence globally. 350. Every single year, we're seeing that number increase, and that's just not acceptable. 98% of those that were murdered were trans women or identified as trans feminine. So I think right there, that's telling us that we have a huge problem with femininity and the way that it's viewed as something that's weaker or less than. 98%. So definitely a pretty significant margin. I don't even know if it's considered a margin at that point when we're looking at those numbers. And then in the U.S., we've seen that 79% of people of color are those trans individuals that have been murdered. So 79% of people that have been murdered because of their gender or their gender identity also are people of color. So we all know we have a race problem in this country, but I think that what we're seeing now too is that we have a race problem and a trans problem, and the intersectionality of those two is devastating.
In preparation, for Trans Awareness Week, we had our show, and then there were some things I was doing for work, and then in preparation for this show. And so if you were to do a Google search, if you type in Black trans women, the first 15 things that come up are articles about women that have been murdered, Black trans women that have been murdered.
Right.
That's the first 15 things. And it is just like, it's happening. I mean, and those numbers, I'm not shocked. Trans women of color are being murdered at alarming rates. And to hear that 350 globally, trans people is, it's hard. It's hard to hear.
It's hard. And it's unacceptable. It just can't be this way anymore. And there needs to be more work done. There's a lot of ways that all of us can get involved. We're going to talk about this a lot on the show when we mention a lot of these issues. But you can donate your time. You can donate your energy. You can speak up and speak out against hate, any kind of hate, especially towards the trans community now that you are learning more or you're more involved as an advocate or an activist. Speak up. Here's a really interesting, good story on this note of getting involved. Layne, have you heard of Cayenne Door Show?
I have not.
Okay, so this is a really interesting story. My wife introduced me to this organization called Glitz. I believe it's out of New York City, and the founder, Cayenne Dora Show, she has been a huge and prominent trans activist and trans community builder for a while in New York City. She really works to identify that vulnerable population of trans trans individuals and Black trans individuals, and realizes how sensitive and precious that community's lives are, not only because of murder and violent crimes, but also because of self-induced mental health issues, homelessness, addiction, suicide. There's a lot of different issues impacting that group of folks. And so Cayenne, in June, put out a fundraiser where she was really hoping to I think receive $75,000 in this first week that she put out the fundraiser. And the idea is that they wanted to help not only that community, but be able to actually build a center. And to build that center, they needed some startup money. And a month later, after she put out a call for $75,000, that organization actually received over $1 million in donations, which is just like mind blowing to think about.
Wow.
There's people that want to help, that know this is a problem, and there's really, really great folks that are leading the charge right now to get more education out into our communities, and to build not only awareness, but to build the resources that are going to be necessary to turn these numbers around. It's education, it's support, it's policing, it's healthcare, it's all sorts of things that need to come together. It's not just one solution, not just one organization. So what Layne and I are going to do is, if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments section, there's going to be a number of resources that we've identified. It's not an end-all be-all list, but it is a good place to start. So if you want more information, if you want to donate, if you're just new and you're learning about this, or you'd like to figure out how you can help, we're going to put a list of resources there so that you can carry on the conversation after today's show.
Absolutely. That is a great story. I mean, and you said something at the end that, it is about all these organizations, coming together. What can we do? I love that she was able to raise $1 million.
Yeah, she's getting some great attention. There's a beautiful GQ article on her right now, so I'll make sure that we link that as well so people can check that out. But some really, really good things coming out of some horrific stories. So the work is being done, but we could use every audience member that's tuning in, listening, to get involved and to get others to get involved, and that's how we're going to heal this crisis.
And I think now's the time. I mean, it's happening. There's a lot of voices out there. We had our show about first, right? Mm-hmm. Senators, legislators. I mean, now's the time. So, 2020 has been kind of suck city, with the pandemic.
Not kind of, has been full
leading
on
up to this election, right? But like maybe 2021 is where, especially if Georgia's able to flip, maybe 2021 is the start of really, a new age in how we look at things. And
no pressure, Georgia. And no pressure at all, Georgia. None at all.
I mean, like some pressure though. Some pressure. So,
healthy pressure.
Like, show up. Yeah, healthy right. Pressure. Like some pressure. I did sing to them last week, so like some pressure.
You did. I think we've raised a little bit of money because of that. So that's good. Maybe we should do some karaoke fundraising for Georgia.
Right. Something. So yeah. Well, look, at the very beginning of this, we told everybody that the reason why we wanted to do this show was because we wanted to talk about what it meant to be a man to us. That's, the baseline premise. We want to reconstruct what that means in society. We want to talk about, the various spectrums. Where do we fall? How, what is a man supposed to be? How do we live up to that? But I think we both think it's important to talk about how we got to where we're at. And that's kind of the main point of today's show, right? Genesis. How did it all start? Mm-hmm. And when did we know that we were trans? And how did we know? Do we remember the first time? What did it feel like? And the many different layers and circumstances and situations that have happened to get us to where we're at is what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I'm always excited. Scared. I'm always excited to hear what you have to say because our stories are so different, right? So I think anytime we talk to each other, we always have questions. We're always learning. I'm still learning from what you share with me because it is such a different experience and coming to, and I think it's important for people, whether you identify as trans, you're coming into trans existence, or you're someone that doesn't know this experience personally, to be able to hear the variations of stories when it comes to, coming out or recognizing or whatever the circumstances, because we all do have pretty personal, individual stories. A lot of overlap for some of us, but you and I have a huge degree of separation when it comes to,
Right.
I think, when we both knew and then took on the identity of being trans. You want to start? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and then even how long, you've been in it. You know what I mean? And the age difference from when we
Sure.
started to, I mean, weren't you like on a horse and buggy back then when we were doing it? Because like I know now
Practically.
we can drive.
Right.
You were like doing this for like 40 years. I'm kidding. But I mean, it is so different. But there's things that you say, on this, I had a discussion last week, and something somebody said was, our experiences are so different, but also shared, because there's things that only we can understand, and there's moments, right, that only we have had. And so, we might have them at different times or in different ways, but there's certainly shared things that make it so we can understand how important it is to stand with each other, behind each other, in front of each other,
Certainly. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that's the human shared experience of we're so different and we're so alike. And those differences are beautiful just as much as what we have in common and what we understand together. And for those people that are listening to us that don't have a trans background, a trans experience of their own, sometimes what I feel gets in the way or becomes challenging is that cis individuals may not know how to talk about the experience of a trans person. And maybe they're curious, but don't always want to ask questions. And so we're going to ask each other questions and put that information out there so that you can learn in a passive way and maybe get better at knowing what is comfortable and okay to talk about, or having more of some definitions at your fingertips and a bit more understanding, maybe a little bit more to root yourself in and feel more confident engaging in these conversations with a trans person, or maybe around the dinner table at Thanksgiving dinner when someone is saying something really stupid and ignorant and you feel like you want to defend trans people and queer people around the world. So hopefully this will be a tool and a show for some of you to be able to engage in that work too.
Exactly.
So I'm curious. I know obviously a little bit about your story, but like I said, I'm always going to learn more. So let's start at that root question for you of, when did you know that you were trans?
I think I decided in 2017 that I hate this question. I mean, I don't think that I'm the only trans person in the world that thinks that, but I mean, because on the basis of it, right, there's a bit of pressure that like you have to be able to give people an answer. Mm-hmm. And I mean that in when I think about it, for me, when did I know? Like, I think there was a number of when did I knows, right? If I had to pinpoint the one, like the one where it clicked, I guess if I could always tell myself to go to the one where it clicked, that would be my answer. But there's so many different layers to this, to how you know. Like, there's things that happened to me when I was 7, but didn't manifest till I was 36. You know what I mean? So I've only been in this, now 4 years. I've been in this 4 years where, I started therapy in 2016 and knew that I was trans. Like, it clicked for me in 2016. But I'm only 4 years into, taking hormones and living this way and change my pronouns and going by that at work. And so there's a lot of realizations of things that I'm remembering that happened to me, or that that affected me. So that's why I hate this question, sort of, because when somebody asks you, they want you to say, well, I knew at this moment because of this, this, and this. And for me, it was a struggle. Like, the way that I was brought up, trans wasn't a thing. I didn't know that existed. Okay. And if I didn't know it existed, it was like in the bad way of like trans women, which they weren't called trans women to me when I was a kid. It'd be like, those sex workers or however people, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
that would be my whatever. That wasn't a thing that you could be or anything that you would aspire to be. So just making your way through life, but things aren't right. Something is off. Like,
Hmm.
why do I hate my body so much? But that wasn't in the realm of my thinking. So I wouldn't be thinking trans. If somebody had talked to me back then, maybe I would have known, So
So let me ask
go.
a bit of a probing question then, and I don't mean to offend you if I go down a road you don't want to go down. But and to the folks that are listening that may not know this, transgender and gender identity is different and exclusive from sexuality. But for
Yes.
those of us that are trans and maybe don't know it or are struggling to identify as trans, we sometimes either by ourselves or others get merged into the gay lesbian community. Because if we don't know that our gender's off, but we're attracted to how we feel is the opposite sex, but it's same sex, then, I know that was part of my existence, was being adopted into the lesbian community and the gay community. Did you have a similar experience to where before you understood, it sounds like you were trans, you were going down the path of being identified as lesbian?
Yeah. I mean, so again, let's talk like that's another sign to me that as a grown up person who realized that they were trans, like I can look back and see why I had such a visceral reaction to lesbian like
Hmm.
the entire time. I mean, I never wanted to be called that, never felt like one, do you know? But I couldn't explain it because trans wasn't a thing in my world. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, I liked women only, I liked women. And that meant that I had to be gay, I had to be a lesbian. So I had to come out as gay, which was the worst, um, and wasn't right. But I was with women, and that's who I was going to be with, and that's what I had at the time. I mean, so
So
yes,
confusing, isn't it?
it
To
is.
to feel like you're different, and then the only box that you can go into is a box that
Yeah,
you're like, but I'm different than this, but I
and
don't
I'm
know
not
what
one of
else
them.
it is.
Yeah,
I don't know where the other box is. Where's my other
right.
choice? Yeah.
And so then I met somebody who was trans. I met somebody who was trans. You, and this is a true story. Like when you told me, I was shocked, like most people, right? But it was like freaking finally something makes sense. Like even, the year or so before that, I mean, I was really struggling. I mean, just like you don't want to see yourself naked. You don't want to be naked. You don't want to, like I had gotten to the point where it was just starting to feel fake, like, I had always gotten close from the men's department and I was okay with how I looked, but like at a certain point, it just is like, what are you doing? Like you don't look how you want, and like you shouldn't not want to see yourself. And I know a lot of people have body image problems, but it goes a step further. And so meeting you, it clicked. It was like, that's what it is. Like you're just like, it's just not right. Like there's nothing you can do except for figure out how to get to be you. And like that moment that it clicked was like the first moment of clarity about my actual self that I can remember.
Mm. And at that point, was it 0 to 100? Was it, I'm transgender, I'm a female to male individual, and I'm making the change tomorrow? Or was there process time? Was there, like a kind of a gender non-conforming identity that you had to go through
Yeah.
first, through the transition, or
When
what did it look like for
Yeah,
you?
for me, well, one, I'm a Scorpio, but two, when things hit me or I've decided something or I understand something or something clicks, I mean that's I'm pretty there. Like I knew now. And so once it made sense, I was like, okay, that's what I have to do. So it became what do I have to do next to start this emotion to do it right, right? Like
Hmm.
that they're talking to my partner about it, right? Like I got to tell you something. Figuring out therapy and how that works so I can understand, right? Because it took me another 4 or 5 months before I told anybody outside of my partner, you know. And that was some fear. It was some, just worry, because the last time I came out, and also this felt bigger. It felt bigger because it was finally right, I think,
Yeah.
you know, but also a bit drastic in what you were going to be asking people to do. There wasn't any in between for me though. Like once I knew and understood, uh, it was like, yes. I mean, and I don't know how else to say it, but look at me. Like, don't I look like what I was supposed to look like? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how to help that translate, but it just is better. And I had an awesome life before this. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish things would have gone a little differently or been earlier, but like I had an awesome life. I had an awesome career. I went to college for free. I was an amazing basketball player. Like I've had great jobs. I've been in good relationships. Like I had an awesome life, but like it still wasn't right, you know? So that's what I mean by look at me. Like it's different. Like
Yeah.
you could see the first 35 years of my life and be like, wow, what an awesome life. I'm like, it was fine, but like
Yeah.
this is where it's at.
I was just going through pictures the other night on my phone, and I had come across maybe 3 photos of you from must have been 5 years ago, like right before, because we only knew each other for a hot minute, and then you were like, I'm trans too, and then you were transitioning. It wasn't a very long period of time in the grand scheme of things.
It wasn't a hot minute.
It was,
So
there was a yes, it was a short amount of time, I would say, from the time I knew you and into the time that you transitioned. But there was I had a few photos that just really were shocking. It was like that wasn't that long ago in your life and my friendship with you that's who you were. And you look so different now. And I would agree from an external perspective as someone that isn't you, you just look like you. You just look like the human being that was underneath the surface that couldn't figure out how to get out. And what happens, I think, to people when that occurs is there's a glow or a depth to the eye. There is just a recognition and a pride of feeling you are who you are to the rest of the world. And you have
you're
that
better.
now. You just
You're
have
a better
that glow.
version of yourself. You know, it's easier to be the best version of yourself if you like it, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked myself, Daniel. I did enough to make it. I wrote about that in one of my blogs one time, you know, like you can do okay and be fine. Right?
What struck me is really unique to you, or it was just really surprising, and it took me a minute to process when you came out as trans to me. It blew my mind because you were the most confident person I think I had ever met. You're just someone that walks into a room and you're very confident in what you're going to tell someone. You're very confident in your opinion, and you usually think your opinion is right. And you just you come in with that. You lead with it, but you're also really confident that if you want to pivot and you are going to change your response, or someone made you reflect, like you're absolutely willing to admit that in the moment as well. You just have a certain essence of pure self-awareness. And so when you first told me that you thought you were trans as well, and I think at that time you even said, I don't think I'm like you, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think this was maybe a couple weeks after I had come out to you, and you were still processing. You weren't totally female to male in identity in your head yet. And
I'm remembering.
But even in that moment, I was like, have you always known? And you're like, no. And I'm like, how could you, of all people in my life, have something that important about who you are not be present in your self-awareness when you are so self-aware about everything else? Like, didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter if it was controversial, if someone had a negative opinion about it, if someone didn't like you, you didn't give a shit. So it was really like, wow, the gender identity can really be a shadow player in someone's psyche for a long time before it actually makes its way into your life. And it doesn't have to do with self-confidence, that there's all these other barriers
Yes.
that you have to get through as a human in this life to sometimes unpack that. And you really, like, I just feel like your story so powerfully depicts that. It taught me
I
a
can't
lot
believe you
about
just
that.
said that, because you reminded me there that, you know, I remember, and you taught me a lot about the spectrum, you know, and to even start to go research what that really meant, you know, and where people could fall, and how you don't have to pressure yourself to be one thing or the other. I mean, my upbringing is the reason for that. That's 100%. And it manifests itself in my life all over the place. I mean, I have a naivety about certain things that you wouldn't think of when you think of
Sure.
me.
Right.
I just do. Like, Daniel, you're right. How could I not know? Right? How
Hmm.
could, to your point, how could I not know that? But like, no, until until it came into my world in a way that I could see it and understand it and see that it was okay.
Hmm.
Like, then it clicked, and like, yeah, then I'm off to the races. But yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I
It's a
love that you brought that up.
it's a huge reminder to anyone out there that might be struggling with sexuality, with gender identity, whatever it might be about your identity that may not be accepted by not only others, but of yourself, that
Yes,
happens, and that it's okay, and that take your time to unpack it. And it's not as simple as someone is just not ready to come out. I mean, that means so
right.
many things to so many people, so many different things to so many people. This is just one example. I think it's an important one. I think your story is profound in that, you know, you had it all, and you were really rock solid with that. But there was this thing that had a huge
Yeah.
fortress built around it, that until you were ready, did it really open up and appear to you in a way that you were ready to take it on.
And the last thing, because I wanna know yours too. But the last thing I would say to people is, and this is what I believe 100%. I say this every time I get a chance. Your set of circumstances is so important. Like, I believe that for me. Like, when I think about the relationship that I was in before, right? There wasn't room for that conversation. There wasn't a place for me to grow, to see who I was. Like,
Yeah.
you were with me for 10 years, and you know I have issues. You know there's something off. You know that I'm, you know, presenting in these ways or not feeling, you know, but like, there wasn't the space or the love or the support. You fast forward to the relationship that you're supposed to be in, and that person is like, you know, dealing with you in the way that you present. And it's like, there's something to be said about that too, you know, and it
Hmm.
is about timing and being ready. But like, if something, for me, it hadn't entered my headspace, and then even if it did enter my headspace, right? Like, maybe I had a fleeting thought about it years ago that wasn't a safe space to bring it out.
Hmm.
There'd have been no way,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's deep.
Wow. Deep. Oh man. Well, geez. I mean,
When
when did you know?
I always knew. I just always knew. Before I knew what it meant, I just knew I was a boy. I knew I was a male, and I don't know how to convey that well, because it was something that never, not for 1 second, wavered in my life. And I, you know, this is I was born in 1978, so this is, you know, early 80s. I'm living in white suburbia, Detroit metro area, and am living in a heavily Italian Catholic family. So it, by all means, was 100% unacceptable to be trans. It was 100% unacceptable to be gay, and I had a lot of family members that over decades time started to come out and identify as gay and lesbian, but it was something that was super hidden and repressed in my family. We had a very, very large family. So even though I knew in the face of everyone that was around me, it wasn't okay, I
Hold on.
knew
Hold on,
enough.
Daniel. Take me through this though, because I know someone who, as a child, knew they were transgender. Like
Mhm.
one of my really good friends, you, is telling me that. So I mean, you're a kid supposed to be a little girl, but you know that you're a boy,
Mhm.
right? Like, what do you do as a kid? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how did
Yeah.
you, how did you show it? What did you do? How did you know what I mean?
So if I showed you, and I can probably get some photos that we can show our listeners and viewers, some images of me when I was very little, probably younger than what you would think a child would actually have advocacy over what they wore. So I do think there may have been some influence by primarily my mother in I look like a tomboy, but even more so like a little boy. And so I had short hair. I wore boys' clothes. My preschool picture was short hair and a sweater. I could show photos of my youth to people that didn't know I was trans, and they wouldn't have any idea. It didn't give me away necessarily. But then there would be,
But
key.
you were doing that, and your mom was being like, "I have a little tomboy."
I think so.
At
Yep.
that point.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I never questioned who I knew that I was, even when everyone else around me did. It just never, not for a split second ever wavered. And I don't know where that conviction came from. It was just incredibly strong. My dad shared a story with me because some people ask me, when's your first memory? I have no idea when my first memory was. I just know that every memory was of me knowing that I was a boy. But my dad had shared with me later when I was an adult, and I had already transitioned, and he was very supportive of that. He shared with me that when I was about 2 years old, I was driving in a car with him, and I was sitting on his lap, and I just looked up at him and said, "When am I going to stand up and pee like you, Dad?" Don't have a memory of that, but that is just the conception that I always struggled with was, when am I going to? And it never
When's it gonna happen for me?
went right. And,
Wow.
and then, puberty hit, and then all the walls came tumbling down, and it was, why is this happening? Why can I not will my way into this body that I know for certain, after everything that's been put in front of me, I still know is me? Why can't I make that happen? And it just for, I don't know, maybe 10 years of my life caused significant mental health issues and depression and self-hatred, and then it moved into anger, and it moved into self-harm, and it moved into harming others that I cared about that were good to me. And it was a nightmare I didn't know how to get out of. When I finally realized that there were other people out there that were transitioning, and that you can take hormones, and that there's people that are living healthy lifestyles, and I could start to see that, that's when I started to change my life and went in that direction, and started to get healthier and happier, and realize who I was. But it was a struggle from birth onward.
Why? Let me ask you this. Why? Um. Okay, you know how you've done the research. I've done the research, right? You see these kids who go through what you're describing, right? I mean, you sound textbook, and I mean that in two ways, right? Like on one hand, some of us would love the textbook of knowing from their earliest memory. I'd love if I could have that, right? Like that's a little bit jealousy. That to me is like, um, you got it, right? But then you hit that point where you didn't have any control and you couldn't do anything about it, and your body happened to you. And so I'm wondering, like, what was your life like? Like, what was your support like? Like, how were you presenting during that time before you know what I mean, before you took the steps?
Yeah.
Like during puberty, during high school, how are you dealing with the fact that your body had changed on you?
Well, and let me go back to this too, because I get your point. I get your point of it, it feeling there's a bit of jealousy in always identifying as trans. But what that meant for me was that I showed up trans every day. I showed up as a boy every day. And not every day did the rest of the world think that that was acceptable. I had the worst things said to me by my best friend's parents. I had moments where I was forced to wear dresses. My first communion, I was in second grade. I didn't like church. I didn't believe in God when I was very little because I'd sat in a church that all they did was tell me that I'm wrong and people that I'm sensitive to in this world are wrong too. So I never believed in it, but I had to go through this communion and I had to wear a dress, and it felt literally like the death of me. I knew it was coming for years because I watched my sister go through it, and then the months and weeks and days leading up to it were a spiral of horror in my head. And the only way that my parents figured out was going to get me through that moment was they told me that if I wear this dress and I go through communion, they're going to buy me this Dyno G2er amazing, beautiful bike, this beautiful white bike with front and back pegs, and the handlebars spun around, and I was going to be able to ride my bike around and do all these massive tricks with it. And so I just dreamed about that bike every day and every night until it happened. And I got home from that horrible communion and I ripped off that damn dress and got on that bike and rode around for hours. And it was like, okay, I can do this. Like, I can endure these moments of horror. I can do it. I've got to have something on the end, but the life of being trans and pushing society at that time in life was horrible. I was in fourth grade and I was in fifth grade. It was the year before I was going to switch to middle school, a different school. And my school, I showed up with a pocket knife one day, a little tiny, this big pocket knife. I showed up at school with it, and one of the lunch ladies in the cafeteria saw me showing all my boyfriends, my buddies, this knife, and she came running over and grabbed my arm and whipped me down the hallway and put me in the principal's office. And the next day they have my mom come in and they sit me and my mom down and they say, this is because I used to go by the name of Butch. And they said, this is because Butch is afraid of men and is trying to be like the men and is bringing this knife in to protect herself. And so we're going to stop that for you and your family. And so they said, from now on, you go by the name of Danielle. And you will not talk to any of your. You need to have more female friends. And I went home that night and I cried my eyes out. And I went to school the next day, like, screw them. That's not gonna fucking happen. And I walked into school and I said hi to like 3 of my friends in the hallway, and they all turned like this. And I was like, that was weird. I don't know what that was about. And then I went into gym class and saw a whole group of my friends, and none of them would talk to me. And I slowly started to realize very early on in that day that they had all been talked to and were told that they couldn't be my friend anymore. So in an instant, I lost every male companion I had growing up my whole life. These were my best friends. These were who I played sports with and video games with. And the trauma of that experience, it still is with me today because I struggle with having cis male relationships because I lost the art of it then in 5th grade. I went into 6th grade and I had to learn the art of being friends with females. And that was a beautiful thing. It taught me so much, and it probably saved me in a lot of ways of learning how to respect females and women and know how to communicate with them and know how to be sensitive to them. And I can get along with almost any female to this day, but you put me in a room of cis men and I'm like the most awkward, uncomfortable dude that there is. So it's something I'm still at, 40 some years old, having to now learn the skills of that. So yeah, I get that. Some parts of it might seem like that would have been nice to have that identity your whole life, but it comes with a significant amount of trauma. So, Not to bring the story down, but it's it was hard for me, and it was really hard for a lot of young people during that time. I think it's changing a little bit right now, but 350 people globally killed around the world. Like, it's still not a walk in the park for any trans person.
Sure.
Anywhere.
No, and I don't want to make it seem that way. I think what I would be jealous of is the awareness.
Yeah.
If that had happened to me, my life would be different, much different. Would I have still been able to play basketball? Would my parents have been able to come around? I mean,
yeah.
I think about, that's what we talked about, our shared experiences,
Mm-hmm.
I think about the battles with clothing. I think about being forced to wear certain things that I didn't want to wear. Why did I feel like that so deeply and so passionately, right? Like the things that just, you can't manifest. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in that case, what I mean is, it would have been great to know that there really is something inside you that's telling you that's why, you know what I mean? And it might not have helped anything, might not have changed anything at the time, because we whatever, but like I do, and I think that that's helped some of the kids these days, right? Like, I mean, there's a video that just came out. This little girl, I think she's freaking 4. She's like, "Hi, I'm Rose. I'm a transgender girl."
Yeah.
She's got older siblings, and it's just like, she knows, and she got lucky. She got the right parents, right support system,
Mm-hmm.
right? But she knew then, and it worked out for her. Worked out in terms of your home, in terms of your support. Like, that stuff goes a long way, right? And I hate that you didn't have that. That's what I hate, that you would know from before you could know anything, and it couldn't have gone the way that,
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely jealous of your experience of, mid-30s, and how to negotiate any situation, including a family that may not be very open and responsive at first. I'm
None
jealous
of us know how to negotiate it.
Right.
No, we're just grown. We just can drive away, Shit. We just can, not answer and lock our doors now, We pay our own bills. We don't know how to negotiate this.
Yeah. That's true. But I think it's a fair point to say that we're all, in a way, jealous of another trans person's story. I'm jealous of the 4-year-old that has the parents that are like, let's get you on some let's give you a dress, some hormone stopping medication right now, so you have some time to think about this. Whatever you choose, I'm here for you. Like, oh my God, mind blowing. Like, that would change every single course of your life after that. But I think, go ahead.
Or just like, oh, I love you still. Like, that would be, oh, yeah, okay, right. Yeah. Do you need to talk about it right now, or I love you? Like, that's also happening these days. Yeah. Like, what? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a little jealous of these kids.
But I think too, you made a good point. That you had said something about that this little girl, Rose, she got lucky, she got she got good parents. But I think what creates those good parents is the activism and the education and awareness that is being pushed by the trans community, and also being supported by just the overall LGBTQ plus community and its strong advocates, because these stories and these voices are letting people know that it's okay, and it's a thing, and it's natural, and we need to support it, and it's beautiful, and here's how you do it. And I think the more and more and more that we do that, and that's what you and I are trying to use our voices for too, bring awareness, bring support, bring people along for the ride, we're going to have more parents and more siblings and friends and schools and other, societal institutions that are going to be able to have room and space and recognition and support for trans people, because it is hard. It's hard, no matter if you're born knowing you're trans, or if you're 35 when you realize it. If you have parents that support you, there's going to be people that don't. And there's going to be people that don't like you, that don't understand you, and there's going to be people that try to hurt you. And we know that that's a reality today that just has to be stopped.
Agree. And it's still always a journey. Always.
Absolutely.
I don't know what I'm going to be like, 5 years from now? And where we'll be 5 years from now in terms of awareness and activism and laws, right? I mean, I'm really hopeful about the Equality Act next year. I just really am. Georgia again. I mean, just so huge. Um, I think this is interesting. I wondered. We didn't talk about you. Did you go through a lesbian phase?
I did. Same thing. Same thing as you. It was like,
The
putting
worst.
someone's pants on that's 10 times smaller than you and wearing that around every day. You're like, something is just not feeling right about this. I'm so uncomfortable. But I have to say that.
Were you? But okay, let me ask you this: Were you just like, I'm not I'm not a lesbian couple. Like, I'm not. Like,
Yeah, I was always embarrassed, but because I
know.
knew that that's not who I was, and I was very open about that. But even in the gay community and the lesbian community back in the day, this would have been now late '90s. I'm close to being a high school dropout, and then a high school dropout eventually. And I had, at the same time in my life, discovered the gay clubs. Luckily, I had some beautiful gay men, young guys in my life that introduced me to the gay club. And that was like, oh, here we go. This is it. Like, screw that world. This is the alternative. This is what I want. And I started to live the high life for many, many years. And it was also when I was being identified as a lesbian, when I would say, yeah, kind of, but I'm not exactly like you. And there wasn't a name for it still. And in fact, there was some blowback from the lesbian community, when I came out and didn't come out, but when I transitioned into, a male. The lesbian community, there was still some strife there. There was an ignorance there. There was an anger. There was a how dare you? You're not that. You're us kind of a thing. Not by everybody at all. But when it would pop up, it was disturbing, and it was like, wait a second, you're my people, you're my family, you're my community. When no one else understood me, you got me, and now I'm dead to you. What happened? So that was. Did you have that happen to you as well?
Yeah, I remember, just real quick on the lesbian thing. Like, one, lesbians are amazing, wonderful people,
So
and
true.
part of our group. Okay, like, we're with you. We're not with you though. That's what we're getting at. Is that when I had to live in that life, it was just like, hey, I'm not one. Like, I'm not trying to I'm not a loving lesbian. Like, fuck. Okay, anyway, so we do love you though in our LGBTQIA plus. We love you. It's not for us. Okay, so but
Just clear that
when
up.
I started to let's just clear that up though. Like, okay. But when I started to transition, or when I had we had these places we would go, like little activities, little bars, and the gay scene, whatever. And I remember the first time we went, and we looked like just a cis couple. And I remember getting looks like, what are
Why
you
are you
doing
here?
here? Or like, and I just wanted to be like, but like we do, but we do, we're part of this group, but there is that, like, because for so long we've had to keep these spaces so safe, from outsiders. But yeah, it's ooh, I have to bleep that one.
You're just like, you're feeling some emotion. It's powerful.
am.
It's powerful. You can cuss. It's okay. We'll just do a little warning.
Yes, I can.
Before that happens.
No, actually, this would be the first time I get to work on that bleep thing. I'll try it. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, if you can get that down, that might be helpful for us, so we can stop censoring ourselves so much. Yeah, I think that'd be good.
It's still going to be on the audio podcast. I'll take it off of YouTube, though.
Okay.
I'll do that.
All right.
I think kids don't hear me say the F word. Yeah. Man, this was something. I feel like I learned a little bit more about you. I really like the whole knowing from the beginning. I don't mean but I mean, I just appreciate knowing somebody who knew that. And I know that it was hard, and I hate that, but I appreciate the awareness and the strength that comes from that. I mean, you just were set up for a lot of pain, and the time of, the time in the world has something to do with it. Family has something to do with it. Environment. But I mean, I think that's my biggest takeaway today is just I have somebody in my life that fits that mold, you know, and then you went through all the stuff that kids that are struggling still go through, you know. I mean, I am fortunate to have missed that, because I would have absolutely hated puberty. I mean, I feel like when it started to really hit me as an adult, it was like another puberty that I just couldn't stand, you know, and I just
Interesting.
couldn't stand as it got up to the top surgery time. So, you know, being a real kid with those kind of emotions, and then, you know, the kind of kids that you had to come into. No, I don't wish I had that. But you know, that's my big takeaway from your story is just a deeper understanding of the awareness, I think.
Yeah. And you know, these stories are important to share, and I appreciate you having the self-determination and the overabundance of confidence as my friend and as a human being to tell your story in such a public sphere because of the sole intention that it may help one other person. And you've always said that, and I feel the same way that you do on that, and I'm glad to be able to host this show for whatever it's worth to that one person that it may benefit out there. And if it helps more people, then great. But if there's one out there that this story gets to, so as one of our listeners, as one of our supporters and our subscribers, please share this with other people. You never know who it's going to help. It's just important to continue to get these stories told. That's what changes the world. So tell your story.
Absolutely.
And share these stories. And we hope to have a lot more in the future. Speaking of, next week, or in a few days, actually, we're going to be coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday, which to a lot of people that are of trans identities and queer identities can become very tricky and problematic to maneuver with family sometimes. So we're going to be hosting a show. Our next episode is going to be on family. We're going to have a couple really wonderful, exciting guests that we're going to be introducing all of you to. I don't know, Layne, do you want to set it up, or do you want to leave it as a surprise for people?
No. So the family episode, you know, this is for it to be the 5th episode. This is pretty quick to be bringing in some family. So you're gonna want to make sure that you see this episode because I'm bringing in my dad. We'll just call him Big Mike.
Big Mike.
That's gonna be something. It's gonna be something. And then we're bringing in my younger sister Jocelyn, who. Quick story about Jocelyn. She'll be mad, but when I had to come out as gay, I told her, and she cried. It's actually quite funny because she was 16 at the time, and she hates when I bring this up because like she's so supportive and loves me and all this stuff. But like when I told her as a 16-year-old, she started crying, and it was like this whole dramatic thing. So
like she was worried about the implications of your once beautiful life.
Crying and sad, disappointed. Yeah, it was great. Like I love bringing it up because like she's the greatest and doesn't care, you know. And so I bring it up all the time. So you have to make sure to give her a hard time. But so yeah, talk about young Layne and when they knew and what they knew, and why the hell they didn't say anything. But yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, family is a thing for anyone trans and anyone queer at all. And for a family member that has someone that they love that is trans or queer, this show is also for you because it's just helpful. And for anyone that doesn't have any of this in their life, you should just turn in because it's going to be hilarious. It's going to be a wild ride no matter what happens. I'm really looking forward to it.
And back to your point from before, though, you know, the point of this for me is to help somebody do whatever it is you're trying to do, right? And if you can look at me and see that I turned out all right, you'll be okay. And if you have it tough with your family right now, right? Like sometimes you gotta get new family, you know. If you feel like, you know, you're not gonna be able to get a job, or I mean, you are. You know, you're going to be strong, and you're going to be happy, and you're going to be healthy, right? And you're going to have people in your life that are going to love you. And that's a message that I want to make sure to say as often as possible, because being trans isn't, it's not a deficiency. It's not something that has to hold you back. It's something that can propel you, because you'll feel more confident, because you'll be walking around as you, right? Once you get to that point. And even if you don't do anything surgically or with hormones, like you taking the stance and making the statement of who you are, I mean, that's a big step too.
Mm-hmm.
And all those little things count. And Daniel and I, we love you, and we're here, and you can contact us. I mean, so we're real people who really care. And it's important for me to say that.
Yeah. Well said.
For sure.
And if you want to reach us, it's Layne and Daniel, not Daniel and Layne at Gmail, but Layne and Daniel. Layne first, but not importance or alphabetical. Layne and Daniel at gmail.com. Write to us or write in the comments. Just reach out. Let us know that you're out there, and let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about, because we probably will never run out of things to talk about, but you might need to give us a little bit of direction sometimes to keep us on track. So let us know. Let us know you're out there. We'd appreciate it.
Exactly.
Well, right, I think we're wrapping this show up, and I just wanted to, again, just take a moment to commemorate a very special day that happened a few days ago, which was Layne's 40th, big 40th birthday. It was a stunning day, beautiful. People are really, really feeling love and are happy that you exist in this world. So. Big day.
40 years with me. That's right. And this is what trans looks like, people. 40 years with me.
I love it.
It's gonna be great. All right, so our podcast is now available wherever you stream your podcast: Google, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you tune in. Wherever you find your podcast, we're there. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you listen. Like,
come to YouTube.
You want to hear something?
Come to YouTube.
Yeah, watch us on YouTube.
You gotta watch us. If you're not getting the fact that we're talking about things like Layne's shirt or our pimples a couple episodes ago, and you really want to see what the hell is going on, tune into YouTube, because you can watch us on video, and subscribe and select alerts on YouTube so that you know anytime an episode pops up.
And if you want to see Daniel looking like Harry from Home Alone, this episode right here, yes, YouTube. The link is right here. Okay, Daniel, this is fun.
Always fun, and pretty emotional today too. I appreciate you sharing.
I appreciate you sharing. It got deep a little bit.
Yeah, we get deep.
We get deep, and I'm mad at that lunch lady. Might try to find her.
You go find her.
All right.
Peace and love.
Talk to you next week.